and welcome back. Now, let's discuss something about website accessibility. Now, what is website accessibility all about? So, before that, let me ask you a basic question. I can have visually impaired as my customer if my products and services are fully accessible. Now, what do you mean by products and services fully accessible? Which means, can these products, or rather, I should say, can they able to access my products online without any difficulty and on their own so that they can get the information. Now, can they shop online? Can visually impaired person shop through e-commerce site? Can they get the items delivered? Can they also browse the websites? Now, if my website is not accessible, are we losing potential customer base who are falling under this particular bracket? By not making my website accessible, I'm actually stopping people with disabilities to apply to my company also because my website is not accessible. So the question is, how do I make my website accessible so that I can actually tap the potential? Now, there is something called Web Content Accessibility Guidelines WCAG. I'm also going to share you the link so that whenever you get free time, you can go through it. WCAG 2.0 has got complete set of guidelines and rules to make the website fully accessible. Now, I'm going to list out few accessibility options so that it becomes easy for us to understand. Now, WCAG says that every video should have closed captions. Now, if my audience is person with speech and hearing impaired, he should understand the video through closed captions. Right. Point number two. Imagine if you have a pic. Okay, there is a pic wherein Modi is standing and greeting leaders, different leaders in the stage. Now, what does a pic convey for a visually impaired person? Now, in this case, uh, there is something called alternative text description, alt text. So when they use this alt text, whenever you upload an image, you can write the description of that particular image so that when the screen reader or the SF technology, say JAWS and NVDA, goes through these pictures, it reads out the description of that particular picture, and the visually impaired can actually understand what is this picture all about. I have started doing this alt text in all my posts, and I have started giving the video description of all the videos which I am posting it. So I request my fellow trainers, whenever they are uploading any images, picture images, please use alt text description so that it reaches to wider audience also. Now, the third thing is page navigation has to be consistent, because whenever we browse with mouse, okay, we just click onto the random things because we could see, and we can click onto the random links, random headings, and we can go to the next page. But for visually impaired and for people who are mobility challenged, they always have to depend on arrow keys or tab keys. So you have to make sure that the navigation is consistent with arrow keys and with the tab keys. In certain cases, few websites will also have animations. So if you have a lot of animations, if you have a lot of blinking features in the website, it might also trigger a person with autism or Down syndrome. They may show some behavior patterns also. So you should have an option to minimize or pause these animations. So all these things are there in WCAG. Whenever you get time, please go through it. All the forms has to be made accessible so that because as I told you, we can directly click onto one particular text field, we can type it. But for a visually impaired person, since they're using arrow keys and tab, it has to go to each and every label, and then if there are any error mistakes, then it has to find out the error mistake, it has to give the correct error pattern. So everything has to be accessible for people with different kinds of disabilities. So these are some basic options wherein you can implement if you want to make your websites fully accessible. Thankfully, most of the government sites in India are fully accessible. So whenever you go through any of the government sites, you could see in the top right hand A plus A minus option. That is all the text patterns. So if you click onto A plus, the text becomes big, and then if you click onto A minus, it becomes small. So it is all this is all to cater people with different kinds of disabilities. You will also have some color contrast options. People who are colorblind, right? So they can actually change different kinds of colors. They can go to the website. So most of the government websites are fully accessible. Great effort. Even PM's Man Ki Baat is coming in sign language so that even the deaf can understand what PM is trying to convey. Most of the streaming sites are fully accessible. I could say Netflix and Amazon. We have closed captions, so even a deaf can actually watch and experience movie. Right. So this is all about digital accessibility and how do you make website accessible. So in my next video, I'm going to talk about a very important point called inclusive training. We as a trainers, how do we make our training inclusive for people with different kinds of disabilities? Until then, stay tuned and thank you.